Okay. So, as you know, there's always this weird little moment when I record these that I don't know if it's recording or not because of the way Zoom handles streaming. So, I'm going to just start out by saying that I am Dennis Procopio. I'm the owner of Man Up Life Coaching. I'm here with Man Up Life Coaching co coach, Coach Faisal.
What's up?
What's up? Um, Gonna flip the sands of time. Gives
We
us
know what
roughly,
that is. Yeah.
well, yeah, gives us roughly 30 minutes, and I'm sure we'll just shut it down right at 30 minutes. Um, so I usually like to come into these, as you know, with some sort of keyword based topic, but in this case, I'm treating it like products that you and I have created before, where we just kind of ran with it. So I literally titled this Coach to Coach. Dennis and Faisal discuss dot 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 to be determined.
Yeah.
So what's on your mind, Faisal? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So instantly, what I'm thinking is, let's just go with what the theme of the week has been for at least my clients, which has been, and this is weird because I'm finding a, there's always something that is a theme of the week with different kinds of clients, and they're all doing working on the same thing at the same time.
Mm,
So the thing this week has been scheduling,
mm,
and the idea that's being hammered into their minds and their being is basically being your own parent. So understanding that within you there's a parent and a child, and you don't want to give too much authority to any one of them, but kind of have a negotiation there. So what it looks like is, for people who are afraid of structure, we need that a little bit. We need some of that to achieve the things that we want to achieve. So there is a little bit of an inner negotiation that needs to go on and say, hey, try to get these things done, put them on your calendar, and then you can, have fun. You can do your thing. And
mm,
there are those other people who can't function without structure,
mm.
and you need to kind of help them, you know do without it for a little while and just get that freedom. So yeah, that's kind of been the theme with the different clients this week.
So, you talk about parenting your inner child. My experience, um, coaching historically, and you know this. I mean, I'm more playing to the audience than telling you something you don't know. But um, how many times have you heard me say in sessions, which you've reviewed, how many? God, how many hours of sessions at this point?
Mm.
Um, you know, this is coaching for men, and what we work on here is self mastery. And for guys, what self mastery often translates to is learning to father your inner child. And there's been this pattern that you and I have perceived. The world is perceived. Who am I kidding? There are a lot of people out there that didn't have the best dads, men and women. And one of the more important behavioral cycles that we need to break globally is bad fathering.
Hmm.
And it's not interesting me to go around and say, bad dad, bad dad, bad dad. There's no value in that. I mean, yes, some eggs have been broken making this omelet. We get it. Um, but what becomes important is offering alternative models, good parenting. And I think, as a general rule, when there's some sort of code put in place, let's say church,
Mm-hmm.
religion, religion has its pros and cons. Not spirituality, but religion has its pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
Because religion is an opportunity, the minutia of religion is an opportunity for debate, and debate at its extreme is war. And we're back, right? And who goes to war? It's not mom and the kids. It's dad. Why? Why? Well, why is one of those questions. Why doesn't even matter. What matters is, what do we do instead? So just stopping there for a second and saying, okay, what are we talking about? We're talking about self-mastery. We're talking about fathering your own inner child. We're talking about a global pattern of behavior which demonstrates fathering decisions which may have worked as good short-term solutions, but
Mm-hmm.
are not sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
and which are proving to be failures as long-range strategies. What do you end up with? You end up with our current situation where there's this effort to emasculate men as though that's the answer, and of course it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to emasculate men. You just need to redefine what masculinity is and is not. I think there's a nugget there. So why don't you take that and run with it? What do you got?
Well, what was on my mind was the rebelliousness part of it. So the moment you were saying that, I was thinking of a couple of guys and how their reaction to, for example, introducing some structure is, you know what this reminds them of.
Dude, I'm getting the worst deja vu here. How many versions of In the Green Room, our previous product,
uh,
did we? I feel like we've said this same. I'm really feeling like we keep having this same. It's like it's literally a loop.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's it's archetypal,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
I'm your father, Luke. I mean, it's right, and so that's why you
Mm-hmm.
hire your life coach, Yoda, to teach you self mastery, so that you can defeat your father's paternal authority within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Isn't almost every other session a deja vu?
I mean, at a certain point, if you back up
Yeah.
far enough, it's from a certain perspective, right? I'm thinking of the original swastika, right? Sort of I'm thinking of the symbol for Jainism and the idea of ascending out of this crap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining somebody listening to this not seeing the symbol. So I'm holding my hand up, and at the bottom of my hand, I'm making this sort of circular gesture that says down here is where we arguably are stuck in this karmic laundry cycle. And the idea is to ascend to this higher vibration where we're simultaneously at rest and this infinitely spinning point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, of course it's cyclical. I mean, to say that
Mm-hmm.
it's cyclical is silly. Um, but so here we are. So regarding the rebelliousness, yeah, it's discipline. It's discipline.
Yeah.
It's you need to do your you need to capture your intentions on your iPhone or Google Keep or whatever device you're using. You need to systematically put those on your calendar as actionable events. You need to demonstrate mechanical precision in checking these boxes off. And if you do, for some reason, because it's life and it's organic, have to juggle things around a little bit, okay, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
But make that the exception, not the rule. And most importantly, if it's difficult for you, no one cares. Wah. Embrace the suck. Subscribe
Mm-hmm.
to the Daily Stoic or whatever. Like, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Um, what's interesting is that most guys have understood that, but the emotional reaction to that fathering, that parenting, that they're either receiving from someone or even if it's themselves, like, putting stuff on a calendar saying, you've got to do this tomorrow and you've got to do this tomorrow. There's a thing inside that wants to say, no. and and even though they understand the importance of what they want to do, it's it's a reaction that they discover is not as easy for them in the beginning to control.
I resemble that comment because when I was growing up, um, I've mentioned my backstory enough times that it's not interesting to go into the details, but having come from one of those childhoods, which included abuse and poverty and 24 different schools and having been in temporary foster care and then permanent foster care and then blah 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 blah. Necessarily, I was no stranger to visits with school psychiatrists, the counselors. Like anytime the school was involved or the state was involved because of some crazy stuff with my circumstances, none of which was my doing. I mean, I just wanted to go to school and get good grades. Like, really, it's all I wanted. I wanted stability. Um, but interestingly, every time I found myself in that sort of environment, um, I was really interested in making a strong impression. I wanted the approval of intelligent people. That would have been teachers, that would have been therapists. What I didn't want to do was work. I had no conditioning. I had no understand. It's not that I was lazy. I mean, surviving is a lot of work. So it's not that I was staying alive in circumstances that are actively trying to kill you is a lot of work. So it's not that I didn't have a work ethic. It's not that I didn't have stamina. It's that I was not trained to do basic things like chores.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember that when I would eventually, because there's a point at which, a kid in a messed up, situation is eventually going to act out in school. And so there was that with me.
Mm-hmm.
And the one comment that haunted me as a child was rebels against authority, difficulty with authority figures. And I recall it was more like women I'd play their reindeer games because I had a mother who was I mean, come on, she had bipolar disorder and a host of other maladies. Like I had to learn how to play her game to survive with her. So I would just do the same thing in these ego battles with my female teachers. Male teachers didn't stand a chance. I'm just like, I'm not doing what you're telling me to do. Kiss my ass. What are you gonna do? Send me to the principal or kick me out of school? Like, you have no power here. Nothing. You cannot make me do anything. And that same rebelliousness would come back to haunt me later in life when I recognized that the key to my own happiness was to not only appreciate the adjustments I needed to make in my own personal life, but to do so with diligence and discipline. It really was about discipline and learning to be your own father when your entire modality is about paternal rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we watch these clients go through this all day, every day, don't we?
Exactly. Yeah.
In varying degrees.
Oh yeah.
And the worst of them are, of course, the ones I identify with the most, which are the flaming, raging narcissists. Big old man babies. Attitude for days.
Mm-hmm.
Entitlement for days. And the smarter they are, the more of a handicap it becomes in lots of ways to their development and evolution in this type of structured system. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah. And it's so many movies are based on this relationship with an authority figure. Um, it's funny, like the clients are scrolling in front of my eyes as we're talking, and
Me too,
I'm seeing
dude. And I'm like,
all the
don't say
different,
anybody's names here,
yeah,
but
I'm
I.
seeing all the different spectrums. But
Mm,
there's also the flip side, which is the people who can't function without someone telling them what to do and having a structure that's given to them. And that's a very interesting thing to me because I completely personally do not identify with that. Uh, like that's never been a part of what I have, had to overcome growing up. I've been more I've been more towards the rebellious side, but not in no way in a combative way.
mm.
I've just pulled out. So you give me stuff to do, goodbye. That was more where I was. But yeah, but this other side is interesting to me. What's your experience been with people like who cannot function without structure?
You're making me think. The first word that came to mind when you said that is I thought, oh, so basically people who have been officially institutionalized. That's really what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
You have somebody who's the context that has provided their rule set and their worldview. It's been this bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been told this is what you do. And so, okay, they've done it and they've gotten results within in that macrocosmic environment. But myself, an outlier, myself, a total outsider, when I would interact with people like this, I would obviously think you don't you're not demonstrating critical thinking skills. You're just showing me that you can, there are some choices you're making within the, there's some movement within the lane you're in, but you're
Mm-hmm.
you're not hopping out of that lane. You don't demonstrate to me that you're a creative problem solver. You don't demonstrate to me that you're capable of out of the box thinking. I'm not sure you would survive out of the box. You're a product of the very environment that was created to protect and serve you has become a bit of a prison for you in a sense. It's golden handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say that, I'm sure people come to mind
Mm-hmm.
for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so for those people, they have a tendency, that's why people who come from more of my background, these people who are sort of the vampires, the people who are outside saying, you know, I think of, you know, Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, and, you know, Tom Sawyer's, grandmother or aunt or whoever she is, I forget the story specifically, but she tells him to whitewash the fence, and along comes Huck Finn, and he's got his fishing pole and his apple or whatever, and they said, "Hey, Tom, why don't you come fish?" And he's like, instead of saying, "Oh, I can't, I've got to whitewash the fence," he says, "Oh, I'm not going fishing. Are you kidding me? I'm going to do this because it's so much better," or whatever, and pitches it in such a way that he makes it look so attractive that Huck trades him for the opportunity to do this, and then he takes the apple and the fishing pole and he goes fishing. So that's the kind of hustle that people that are outside of the bubble, that's the angle that people outside of the bubble work.
Mm-hmm.
And it works precisely because there's something attractive for the person who is institutionalized about the opportunity to go off script, to go off the road and in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, I used to live in New Orleans, and New Orleans is a perfect place for anyone with a hustler mentality. Strippers, street musicians, buskers or whatever. Just anybody, shoe shine boys, anybody out there hustling to kind of work the people who are taking a break from their routinated little lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because the truth is, yeah, you get this great skill set if you've been raised on the outside of this. If you're from north of the wall, man, if you're a wildling, if you've been raised outside of the culture,
Mm-hmm.
You have a unique perspective, and that becomes attractive. But your secret is that you feel cheated and that you would trade anything to have been raised in that bubble, to have had that stability,
Mm-hmm.
to have had that safety, and to have had what to you looks like love. Because if somebody keeps you fed and keeps you warm and keeps you safe, you know, keeps you dry when it's raining and, you know, cool when it's hot outside and keeps clothes on your back and shoes on your feet, sends you to school, like that looks like love. What you don't see are the strings.
Mm.
Prince of the Pauper. Right? So there's
Yeah.
my little. I deal with guys who come from something more like my background, and I need to tell them, you know, like, dude, man up and do your job. You're not special.
Yeah.
But I also deal with the other people who I have to say, hey, look, um, you're going to need to sack up and take some risks here.
Mm.
You're going to need to learn how to leave your house without your cell phone and learn that you can survive without it.
Yeah.
Things like stupid little things like that really aren't that stupid.
Yeah. And that's what's been my experience as well. And working with both these kinds of
Extreme, yeah.
people,
Mm.
um, that introducing little things at a time really goes a long way, especially when someone, for example, is very afraid of losing the structure that's been built for him
Mm.
in the sense of whether it's his work that provides him structure or if it's his spouse or whoever, like whatever the case is, um, introducing the smallest steps towards, here's something you can do that doesn't require a time and space, like take a little time off and do this thing. Like there are so many examples that can be given, but my point is the small things really add up over time.
Yeah, it's there's a book that comes to mind called The Compound Effect,
The
and
compound effect. Yeah.
it's the idea that it's the dollar store concept. It's the idea that these incremental gains really do amass over time, um, without the systemic shock that could happen by, just like taking a guy who has been living, who's been working a 9 to 5 and been a family man, for the past 20 years and just getting him whacked on peyote and taking him to Burning Man or whatever. Like there, there are baby steps. A
Mm-hmm.
risk for that guy might be taking a different route to work every day.
Yeah, yeah, things like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Putting your wallet in your back left pocket instead of your back right pocket and discovering that
that's
you
right.
can you can survive.
That's right. That's right. Washing your face before brushing your teeth, for example. It works. Things like
I
this actually do work.
as you know, I have a son with autism,
Yeah.
and dude likes his routines. And I have to hard sell anything that is a deviation from his regular routine. Of course, once he's done it, then he wants to do it again. So,
Mm.
I mean, trying to get him to get up off the couch, put the iPad down, get his little shoes on, get in the car with mom and dad, and go drive to the, train museum, which just recently happened, was a Herculean task. We got within 15 minutes of the place, and he had a full Rain Man episode, and we just had to abandon it and say, we'll try this another time. Now, in his case, he's an 11-year-old with moderate to severe autism. I'll let him slide. We'll try the
Mm.
museum another day. Um, but in the case of these clients, come on, dude, you're a guy in his 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Take the risk.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So as we move toward the end of our time here, what do you think are some, like, if you had to finish this with some sort of, value based sum up, what might that be?
That would be the, I think that inner negotiation between your father archetype and the inner child is a very important thing in bringing the best out of you. So you've got a very productive, um, a very productive version of you that can be accessed by just having a little bit of an inner negotiation. So not everything is enjoyment, and not everything is like, I just want to do what I feel like. Not everything is mood, not everything is emotions. And on the other side, not everything should be structure. So I believe there's a sweet spot which is different for every person. I don't know if you agree with that. We've never,
No,
I don't think we,
we've not had this conversation, but sure it is.
yeah,
Sure it is.
yeah. And yeah, there's a sweet spot that makes each person the best productive version of themselves that they can be. And I just want to say something quick, at the risk of us going into a deep dive, but this just made me think about something, because we over here just came out of Ramadan,
Mm-hmm.
fasting, prayer, and all those things. We were talking about religion a little while ago, and as you were talking, I was thinking about structure coming from religion, which is, something like the prayer times, the fasting period, and everything. But also at the same time, that structure is tied to something that's dynamic. So it's like the moon and the sun, and which changes every day. So you've got a structure, but at the same time, it changes with time.
It's interesting because the mental model that I have of that is something in orbit around something else, but that something else being on its own mercurial orbit, and we don't understand necessarily what that path is because it's so meta.
Mm.
So, on one hand, yes, we're being incredibly systematic and routine, but ultimately, we're doing that with the understanding that our terra firma is still actually dynamic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah, that's what nature teaches you, man. Nature does that.
And that's the game we play.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so if we were going to title this episode, what would we call it?
Hmm. So we talked about structure, but we also talked about inner parenting, self-parenting. We also
We talked about risk.
risk
We talked about
rebelliousness.
risk. We talked about rebelliousness. We talked about risk taking.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a guy and I just watch these two folks talk about this thing,
Mm-hmm.
what's my what did I learn?
I guess what you learned is self-governing and structure.
It really comes down to something that I've talked about a lot, which is being a benevolent authoritarian,
Yes. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, um, the benevolent authoritarianism, an insight into fathering the inner child.
Mm-hmm. There it is.
Woo! Content. All right. Well, we're gonna go, guys. If you want to hear more of this, then subscribe. If you don't, um, you found the wrong place. You're in the wrong man cave. But anyway, Faisal, thanks for doing this. Stick around after the thing so we
Sure
can have a
thing.
chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right.